Criminals number 1. We basically are introduced to Susie, who is one of our main protagonists here. And we pretty much see that her dad died from getting killed off of a building. So that's kind of the backstory we have there. Her mom kind of collapsed into like drugs and depression and stuff like that because of it. And Susie realizes that she can stop time when she has, I guess, an orgasm. That's kind of what she discovers. And throughout the rest of the issue, we kind of see her through her adolescence kind of discovering this power, testing it out until she actually meets a guy at one of her parties. At this point, she has graduated college and she's working at a library. She meets this guy at one of her parties that she holds with her roommate, Rachel, where she meets this guy named Jonathan, and she has sex with him, and turns out that both of them can coexist in what's known as the quiet. That's what they refer to as basically, what happens when time stops when they have sex. So very interesting issue here. I think it's a double size issue. And Jonathan and Susie are definitely really great characters. Another thing I love about this issue is, writing wise with Matt Fraction, we get Susie kind of doing some fourth wall breaking stuff, sometimes existing in the same realm as her younger version of herself. And then we also get some really nice stylistic choices going on here by Chip Zdarsky with the way that the quiet is portrayed, right? It's kind of like these like purple and yellow and blue like streams of energy that are flowing through the air whenever time is stopped. So that's really cool. I won't say too much about this more because I want to kind of keep these shorter, but honestly, this is a really great beginning to this series and really excited to see where this goes. But that's been Sex Criminals number 1. Criminals number 2. This is essentially the backstory of Jonathan. So we kind of see a backstory of him and how he discovered his abilities, I guess, with stopping time when he has sex. So we kind of get some background there. Most of it's kind of related to this adult store that sells pornography, called Cum World. So he, basically explored his sexuality, I guess, or his, whatever, in this store, and that's basically how he kind of discovered his powers. And one time he actually came back out of the quiet while he was like in the place still, so that was kind of awkward for him. But Jonathan's a really interesting character as well. Throughout this whole plot thread, right? I forgot to mention it last issue, but throughout this whole plot thread, we are seeing Susie and Jonathan in a bank, basically running away from these people that are dressed in like white trench coats, which we don't really get as much backstory here yet, but we do get a little bit of additional information at the beginning and end of this. But we also kind of see some weird, like not really weird, but some interesting little things going on here. Jonathan has like this one actress in pornography that he really likes, and he says that basically Susie looks like him or her. Sorry, excuse me. So that kind of what I guess attracts him to her, and they're both just really. I guess they're both kind of sex addicts. I don't know. But it's the banter, the chemistry between the two characters, I think, is very interesting. And this issue basically just explains his story. So I thought this was pretty on par with what we saw in the first issue. I think it's still really building some steam here. We're getting some more backstory developed with these people that are chasing them in the quiet. So we don't really get too much context here again, but as we go along here, I'm sure we'll get some more. So that's been Sex Criminals number 3. Story opens to, again, more backstory with this robbery going on, but we kind of go backward in time a little bit more, talking more about John and his first few times, discovering, existing in the quiet, I guess, while he was in college. and the first time he had sex, which I guess was in college. So we see that kind of backstory there. We see the two, Susie and Jonathan kind of walk away, leave. Susie was this is all taking place over a weekend. Susie wanted him to stay another night, and John leaves, goes to his work, which is at a bank. And they end up getting back up together. They go to the actual adult shop that I mentioned last issue, and they end up, shopping around there and actually going to this theater that's inside the shop that they can watch pornography on, which I think is a little interesting there. And then they end up in a bar where we see Susie dancing to "Fat Bottom Girls" by Queen, and it's funny the whole time that sequence is playing, we get little blurbs over the lyrics saying that we couldn't post these because Queen would sue us or something. So that's kind of cool as well. And then the two of them kind of get to thinking about what they could do while they're inside the quiet. And one of the things that's going on here in the background is the library that Susie works for is actually struggling to. They're basically trying to sell the property because they can't afford it. So the bank's trying to buy it from them, and they actually have a fundraiser going to try to make money for the bank or for the library. And Jonathan says, well, why don't we just get the money that we need to keep the library going? The bank's going to make that money back in no time. So we're not really stealing from anybody. We're stealing from people who definitely have more money than what they know what to do with. So the two of them agree. We then go to, I guess, the present time right now, where these people in the white trench coats basically beat Jonathan in the head. So they smack him in the head, and that's where our issue ends. So again, we're kind of playing a little bit more with, going forward to the present, going backwards to the setup. So I like the way the storytelling's going here. It never feels disjointed to me. I feel like Matt Fraction does a really good job with that. And obviously the art here is just amazing. So yeah, that's been Sex Criminals number 3. Sex Criminals number 4. Basically we see, I keep saying basically a lot. We see Susie and Jonathan essentially practicing, working in the quiet and doing stuff to hopefully become undetected. So they go into the porn shop again, and they basically mess up a bunch of stuff and leave, and then see if anybody gets onto their traces of what they did. So the only person that notices this is this woman that is part of what's known as the sex police. So they work inside of the quiet just like Jonathan and Susie are, and they try to stop people from committing crimes inside the quiet. So really cool to see that. This character is very interesting because this woman is menacing. I don't think we get her name yet, but she is menacing, but at the same time, it's she has her own family, and there's one phone call she makes to somebody at the police station that she's like, oh, meet me at this person, and then she's like, no, not tonight. Tonight's taco night. So she has 2 kids and a husband, so that's kind of funny to see that. But yeah, so essentially, once they finish up that practice run, they now go forward and start doing little crime sprees, stealing money from different little smaller banks, just to kind of get that money up, because the last thing they want to do was go to the bank that John works for, because he knows that very well and he can get in there and get the money. So that's the plan. And while they're doing this woman's on their trail. So fast forwarding to the present, we see that this woman and some of her lackeys basically tase or zap Susie and John inside the bank, and they pass out, and that's how our issue ends. So more to come, but yeah, really enjoyed this issue. I feel like at this point it was the point that really got me hooked and kept me reading. The first issue or two I felt was a little slow for me, but this is really starting to pick up now, and I'm just really excited to see how the rest of this series unfolds. So that's been Sex Criminals number 4. Criminals number 5. The issue opens to our 2 main characters, John and Susie, being captured by the sex police and being transported. So we kind of get that going on, and then we also see, we also discover kind of through some more flashbacks here that there was a time where Susie and John actually met this woman in a, like, I guess a diner somewhere. And we also discovered, so pretty much the rest of this issue takes place in the present, right? So during the robbery itself. And basically the way that this woman found out where they were is that she was there in the quiet when they were robbing the bank. So that's kind of how she ambushed them. We also discovered that John has ADHD. So that's something that, Susie has to deal with and understand. But pretty much the way that they end up getting out of this is Susie actually finds a way to get out of this, like these sex handcuffs, due to some experience she had with John previously, I guess. So she's able to get out of them and use a vibrator of all things to, I guess, disable or knock out all these sex police people. And so they get away. And that's kind of interesting. But obviously now the status quo has changed. They now know that they're not alone in the quiet and not even alone in real life. So I'm really curious to see how the next trade of this plays out. This is the end of the first trade of Sex Criminals. And this is really starting to pick up for me. Really enjoying this series. And Matt Fraction, Chip Zdarsky, they don't disappoint. So this is the Sex Criminals number 5.